Hello everyone, hope you are having a fantastic day so far, and welcome back to it's not the Waiver Wire show, it's the LTC Power Rankings, the first one, and I'm joined by the League Commissioner, Fosse.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Fosse here.
Yep, joined with Dr. Strumpful this week, which is a strange mismatch, but I like it. And we're going to go over the power rankings, we're going to do it individually, each of our power rankings, for all the teams in the LTC this season. We're going to do them in alphabetical order because obviously we have them ranked at different spots. We'll kind of talk about their drafts. We're not factoring anything like coachability. It's just talking about the teams that everyone drafted. Do you want to just get straight into it? Do you want to just kick it straight off with the first team?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, awesome. So the first thing we have to talk about is the Brayhead Khan, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, coached by Gareth. And also, I should say, anyone who has YouTube channels that will be uploading LTC content will be linked down in the description, so make sure you check out all of those guys, subscribe here too, to keep up with everything with the LTC. I think this league's going to be amazing. Obviously, lower tier championships, we're going to have it's just going to be unique, I think. It's going to be very different, so...
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see some different ones that you don't normally see used, so...
Yes, exactly. So yeah, we'll kick it off with Gareth's draft and the Brayhead Khan, everything that he drafted. Do you want to talk about the drafts first, or do you want to say where you ranked them first?
Yeah, we'll talk about the bonds first and then go with ranks.
Okay, so do you want to read out his draft?
Yep, so Gareth drafted Delphox, Mesprit, Kingler, Mudsdale, which I know you were really happy about.
Yes, yeah. Oh god, biggest snipe of my life.
Mischievous, Carnivine, Dragonair, Drapion, Aromatisse, Leafeon, Primeape, and Plusle.
Yes, and his Z captain is Aromatisse, which means it's allowed to use setup moves, anything else, right? It can use any kind of move, not just offensive moves.
Yeah, status Z moves, anything that's basically not Omni boosting moves is
right. And
the
then
Z captain.
His Z user, which is purely offensive moves, is Delphox.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about what you kind of felt about this draft, going straight in? What you kind of feel about the ones he drafted?
Yeah, well, I think his Z user in Delphox is really good because Delphox does get some really nice coverage. So I feel like he'll get some good use out of Delphox as a Z user. I feel like he's got some really nice mons in his draft. I'm just doubtful on how well they'll work together.
Yes. Yeah.
I've got a few concerns I had with his draft where his only form of hazard removal is Carnivine,
Yes.
which means if he doesn't want to be hazard stacked every week, then he's almost pressured to bring that Carnivine constantly. So it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of works around that.
Yeah, absolutely, and I kind of feel the same way. Speaking about Delphox, I like fast offensive Z users because it means you can get your new card almost guaranteed. You know, I like Delphox as a Z user. And I agree on your kind of Carnivine analysis. Carnivine isn't necessarily the best mon, even in this format, so being pressured to potentially bring it every single week isn't something I would want to have to do. You know, I with Leafeon in his draft as well, I don't see Leafeon being brought that often if he has to bring Carnivine every week. So maybe that's room for potential trade later down the line. I don't know. But Leafeon's a great mon, arguably a lot better grass type than Carnivine. So I kind of agree with you there. I think that's a big problem on his draft.
Yeah, I mean, Carnivine is a good default option, obviously not being weak to rocks, but having it as your only form of hazard removal, I think, is going to cause problems with this team.
Absolutely. I think that he has quite nice bulk in his team with things like Mudsdale, which was very, very in demand, I believe, in this draft. I'm not sure if it's just hearsay, but I think people wanted Mudsdale. Even Mischievous. I know I've seen you use Mischievous actually with an EVO. Like that thing can eat hits.
Yes.
Dragonair, obviously with the multi-scale, tanks a hit the first time. He's got some decent mons in here. Like Kingler is very, very scary. If he gets an agility off with Kingler, sheer force boosted liquidation, I think it gets now, right?
Yes, yeah.
That's absolutely terrifying. And he has a nice rock setter in Mesprit too. I don't know what his other form of hazards are though.
So he has Mesprit obviously gets the
rocks and
the stealth rocks.
Mudsdale does as well.
The Drapion also gets toxic spikes.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
So he does have an option in that as well.
Yeah, that's not so bad then. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, another option he does have because I'm going to bring up his speed tiers as well. There are something that I don't know. Kind of didn't like about this team. Obviously, his fastest one is Delphox, which is base 104 speed, which isn't like incredibly fast.
No, no.
And then he also has four mons that are all based in 95 speed. So I just feel like it's going to be really easy to speed creep his team. But that being said, he does have possibly one of the best Trick Room setters in this format in Mischievous. Obviously, with the Evilite, it's really bulky. It can set up a Trick Room, and then something like a Kingler or a Mudsdale under a Trick Room instantly then becomes really
Oh,
scary.
terrifying! Absolutely terrifying for sure. And one of the things that I kind of like is that he has his two, arguably his two best offensive mons in Drapion and Delphox. I think they were the two higher tier defensive mons that he picked. Um, Both struggle with ground types, but he has quite a few levitate mons to switch in. You know, he has Mesprit, he has Carnivine, and he has Misdreavus, so he covers his offensive mon's weakness quite nicely there, which I think is good. But as you say, my major problem with this draft was the speed tiers. It's going to be very easy to speed creep. There's going to be a lot of mons that can run, you know, modest or adamant if they're offensive mons because he's just not hitting those high speeds as much.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you want to talk about where you place this team?
Yeah, so I placed Gareth at 10th. Yeah, like I said, it was just the speed issues, the fact that Carnivine is his only form of hazard removal. Feel like he might struggle with that. Obviously, there's definitely room for improvement. I feel like even maybe just like a couple of trades may push this draft up higher, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
I completely agree.
it's 10th, but it's not like it's not a disastrous team, is what I'm gonna say.
No, it's
Definitely not.
It's not irredeemable at all. I feel the same way. I've got it at 10th as well. As you said, it's the problem with the removal and the speed tiers. They're really the two issues. Everything else is pretty nice. He's got some great ones. I mean, half his team, let's be honest, I wanted to pick, as you well know. So
Yes.
it's not like I dislike the Pokemon on his draft. And he has a nice Volt Turn Core in Primeape and Plusle. So he has things going for it, but and Mesprit too, actually. But I think he just, those speed tiers and removal would take it up quite a few places in the rankings.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So we'll move on now. And second up, we have Devious Ditto and the Devious Dittos, funnily enough, who obviously is a good friend of both of ours and
Yes. Yep.
drafted some really interesting things here, some things that are quite good fun.
Oh yeah, his team consists of the Bruxish, the mascot pick, the Ditto, Raichu, Mr. Mime, Dunsparce, Rotom Frost, Palpitoad, Hitmonlee, Braviary, Tangler, Bastiodon, and Nidorino.
And I think that his Z captain is Mr. Mime, if I'm correct, and his Z user
Yes.
is Rotom Frost. So Mr. Mime, I think, is a Z captain. Obviously, it gets a lot of support moves, so I'm sure he'll have some techs on there that he's got in mind already. And then Rotom Frost, I'm guessing he's just thinking running Z Blizzard to get 100% accurate Ice Stab.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It would be very, very powerful with that, I suppose. So that they make sense as Z captains. I can see I can see why he's gone for those as well. Do you want to kind of talk about how you feel about this draft in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of mons that I know that Jake knows very well. Obviously, he's very well experienced with Rotom Frost, with Ditto, with Mr. Mime as well. So I know they're like mons that he knows fairly well. His hazard removal options again, he's got three forms of it. Obviously, Rapid Spin, Hitmonlee, and then Defog and Braviary and Rotom Frost. But I feel like obviously with Braviary and Rotom Frost being weak to rocks, he's more going to bring the Hitmonlee. But at least he has the options there. I do like the defensive possibilities in this team as well. Like Bastiodon's going to be a Tangler as well. Like you see that in regular draft leagues, you know, being able to take hits and be that really annoying mon that just you can't get rid of, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like his defensive options are fairly good. Yeah, his speed tiers are interesting. He has biggest problem with that for me was the fact that he had like a massive jump. So he's got Bruxish at base 92 speed and then Raichu at base 110.
Yeah.
There's obviously that big gap in there.
Which we've already seen. There's a lot of mons hitting base 95, base 100. That's quite a common speed tier. There's a lot of mons in this format that hit that. So I think that particular area is quite a big gap to have and quite an important one as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, his type weaknesses are pretty good as well. Like his team kind of covers all of the weaknesses that it needs to. So I feel like it is, that is definitely a positive for this team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he has, we're talking about removal on Gareth's draft. He has Rotom to defog. He has Hitmonlee to spin. Braviary could have defog. Um, I don't know if he has any other removers. I think they're his main three.
Yeah, there's the only three that get removal.
So for me, Rotom Frost and Braviary are both weak to rocks, if I'm right, which isn't ideal. So I see Hitmonlee as I guess his main remover, but I don't know if necessarily you want Hitmonlee to be doing that as much as you just want it to be firing off massive hits. So I don't know, I'm not completely sold on his removal either here, but it's not bad. He's got options. He's got 3 different options, which is always nice.
Oh yeah, I mean he could always switch in a Ditto on someone else's hazard removal and get some removal for himself.
Very true. And that brings me on to probably my major problem with this draft, because I genuinely really like this draft. I think he's got some good defensive options, some good breakers. You can have set up things like Raichu gets Nasty Plot right, so you can have set up Raichu. Hitmonlee is quite a scary mon. Bastiodon's very thick. Tangler's very thick. But for me, what this draft kind of lacked a little bit was the round 1 pick. He was the first pick overall, so the draft went all the way to the end and then all the way back before he got to pick up his second pick. And for his first pick overall, he picked Ditto, the mascot pick, which I can't knock. We all like a mascot pick, if I can get my words out. But I feel like when I look at his draft, he doesn't have that one mon that really stands out as like, yes, that's the mon you take first round, you know? I feel like maybe he suffered a little bit because of the mascot pick.
Yeah, and I feel like he doesn't have that one good wall breaker either.
Mm-hmm.
So in his team, like he's got some powerful mons, but if he comes up against something that's like really, really heavily bulky, I feel like he may struggle in that aspect.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. So, but a nice draft and it feels quite a balanced draft when I was looking at it. And obviously he's got, as you say, mons that he likes, and he's got the kind of the Palpitoad, which I think is almost like a mascot pick for him, right?
I think he said it was his former mascot. I think his former mascot was Seismitoad.
Right. So it's kind of a bit of a nod there.
Yeah.
And of course he sniped Checkmate Ben on the Dunsparce, which was hilarious to watch.
Oh yes.
But yeah, I like this draft. Where did you place it overall?
I rated it 8th overall, so I put it higher than Gareth's draft, but yeah, I put it 8th.
And I ranked it 9th overall, so the place just above Gareth's draft. Like I say, this isn't a draft that I really feel like there needs to be a lot of changes to, a lot of trades or anything, but it just didn't wow me either. There wasn't quite enough firepower, I guess, for me on this one.
Yeah, definitely.
So moving on, next, if I've got the order right, which I've just closed, so I'm just reopening it. Okay, so next I think we actually have myself, is that right?
Yep. The Lake District Spirits.
Yeah, the Lake District Spirits, coached by yours truly, Dr. Slacking. Well, I'll let you run through the Pokemon I picked.
Yep, so your team is Swallow, Sork, Gramble, Licky Licky, Hypno, Camerupt, Metang, Blastoise, Serena, Mudbray, Yanma, and Dedenne.
Yeah, and my Z captain is Sork, and my Z user is Yanma.
Yeah, so some interesting picks there.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Do you want to lead off? Seeing as though it's my draft, I'll let you kick off kind of your thoughts.
Yeah, that's fair enough. First of all, I'd say out of the 3 we've seen so far, I think your hazard removal is probably better than the other 2, and the fact that you've got really good rapid spinners in Blastoise and Serena, possibly the 2 best rapid spinners in this format. So yeah, I really do like those options here. I was very interested about your choice to put Yammer as a Z user. I thought that was very interesting. But Sork is actually a really good Z user. Obviously, it gets plenty of coverage for it. So yeah, that's really good there. Yeah, and I feel like you have a slight problem with ice moves, but I feel like you've got things that can tank them in like Metang and Blastoise. Obviously, they're pretty good. Blastoise doesn't care about switching in a potential getting a potential freeze either, with obviously getting schooled. Yeah, I think you got some decent bulk. Your speed tiers are fairly good. I mean, you got the Swallow at base 125, so you got that really that one fast mon, that really fast mon that's going to cause other teams to have to bring Choice Scarf in an attempt to try and outspeed it.
Yes.
And then you got the Dedenne at 101. So yeah, there is a kind of a bit of a gap there, but yeah, it's I don't know. It's you've got the 2 over base 100, which I normally like in a draft anyway.
Yeah.
I think if I was to say anything, I mean, you've got a couple of semi-decent wall breakers. Obviously, Swallow's a lot better in this generation now as well.
Yes.
like Choice Specs Scrappy Boom Burst is going to be tearing through a lot of things, but I don't know. I feel like it can be worked around. I feel like Swallows, I don't
Absolutely.
know.
I,
And then, sorry, go on.
I feel much the same way. My problem with my draft was, as you say, the speed gap from 101 to 120. And in my opinion, Dedenne isn't even a mon that necessarily has to be speed capped by a lot of things because it's not massively powerful. You know, people aren't necessarily desperate to outspeed it. So I was a little bit concerned about that. But even more so, I think I have a lot of bulk and a lot of decent mons, but much like I said with Devious Discus draft, I think my draft lacks a bit of firepower. Outside of Sork and
Yeah.
Swellow, it just doesn't hit hard enough for me. That's my opinion.
No, no, yeah, that's where I was going with that. I think Sork is obviously a really nice wall breaker, base 125 attack, but it does have that 85 base speed, so there is,
Yes.
it's easy to work around Sork,
Yeah.
I feel like.
I'm either going to have to bring it scarfed and then I don't make use of as a Z captain, or it runs a little bit on the slow side. Fortunately, in this format, things aren't super fast, but it would be nice if it had another 10 points in speed, say, to hit that 95 mark.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so just to elaborate a little bit more, I feel like, as you say, the positives of my draft, Blastoise and Serena, two tier 1 spinners. I guess the only other spinner up there was Hitmontop and Hitmonlee, but Hitmonlee, as I said, is more of an offensive mon anyway. So I guess Hitmontop's the only other real spinner in that bracket. So I like
Yeah.
that. I like to have my removal for Swellow. Yanmar as a Z user was for reasons that I won't discuss today, but I will discuss at a later date. And kind of my main bit that I like about my draft is the kind of Gramble, Licky Licky, Hypno. A lot of bulk there. It's going to be quite hard to break through. Maybe be able to just wear teams down, and then something like Swallow come in at the end and clean up. It's just as you say, I need more than just Swallow to come in at the end and clean up.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, do you want to talk about where you place my team?
Yeah, so I ranked your team in ninth, one spot behind Jake.
Yes.
The main reason I did that was because I feel like there's a lot of mons in your draft that aren't necessarily going to be brought that often.
Right.
I feel like Yanma probably wouldn't be brought that much. Dedenne probably wouldn't be. Mudbray
Yeah.
might not be. Even maybe something like Hypno, when you've got like the Gramble and the Licky Licky already there, I feel like the Hypno may not be brought that often.
Yeah.
It's just, I feel like I don't know, it might be fairly easy to predict what you might bring each week. And I
Yeah.
feel like that kind of predictability kind of let down the draft a little bit.
Yeah, so I feel much the same way. I ranked my team in 8th. So far we've had 8th, 9th, and 10th between us. It's just you and I have swapped myself and Jake around. So we're pretty consistent. We're thinking about the same sort of level. Exact same problems that you have, really. Other than don't sleep on Mudbray. Mudbray, if I can't have Mudsdale, I'm going to have Mudbray, and the little donkey's going to come through, and he's going to put in work. He's going to be the sleeper pick of this season. Or it's going to be a disaster, and I will be the laughingstock of the season. Who knows? Only time will tell.
Stay tuned to find out.
Yeah, exactly. I hope it works. I guess that became almost like a mascot pick for me after the drama with the Mudsdale snipe. It had to be done.
Yeah.
And no one suggested any viable alternatives. No one suggested any of the ground types to me. So
No, it's not like I suggested Sandslash to you, which, would have worked as well.
I
But
should have taken. I should have. But you live and you learn. Moving on. Anyway, next up we actually have your draft.
Yep.
Which is great because now I'm going to say really, really mean things about your draft.
Go right ahead.
I'm not at all, of course. So we have your draft, and I believe you're still going by the Leicester Delphoxes, is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Do you want to run through what you drafted?
Yep, so I drafted Jolteon, Mismagius, Kabutops, Alolan Dugtrio, Togetic, Gothitelle, Monferno, Kingdra, Weezing, Ludicolo, Zigzagoon, and Mightyena.
Right. And your Z captain is your Gothitelle,
Yes.
and your Z user is the Kabutops.
That's correct, yep.
First of all, your Zmons. The Gothitelle is a Z captain. I'm really curious about that. That wasn't necessarily what I was expecting. So why have you kind of gone that route?
There's some interesting... I don't want to go into too much.
Okay.
But there are some interesting status C moves I could use on Gothitelle, which could potentially Yeah, could potentially give it a little bit.
You have things in mind. You have some hidden
I have
tech.
plans.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
if it doesn't work out, I can always trade it out and give it to one of my rain mons or something.
yes, yeah, and your Kabutops makes perfect sense as the offensive Z user because that thing hits really really hard.
Yep, and you
Obviously,
don't want to be missing stone edges.
we can't really talk about your draft without mentioning the kind of Swiss swim ability because you do have the Kabutops, the Kingdra, and the Ludicolo in there.
Yeah.
So I guess in a format where weather abilities were banned, you've drafted a soft weather team, which I think is really interesting. I think you're
Yeah,
the only person that kind of did that.
yeah. I mean, it's even without the weather abilities, still being able to set rain dance up on something and still getting the swift swim. It means that it's not necessarily has to be like a full-on rain team. I've got the 3 Swiss swim users there, and I can bring one week, or I can bring 2 or something, just based on what my opponent may struggle with to
Yeah.
take on. So
And the really interesting thing, I guess, about this format is where Ludicolo in a normal draft league is kind of a mediocre to bad Pokemon outside of Rain. In this format, even without Rain, it's a very solid mon still because we're in the lower tiers. So even if you don't bring the Rain, they still work. They're still very viable mons. I mean, Kingdra is still very, very scary in this format.
yeah, definitely.
We've spoken a lot about removal. Do you want to kind of talk about your removal options and your speed tiers, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so my removal was a bit. I'm not as happy about it, but I've got Rapid Spin on Kabutops and Defog on Togetic. I think the major downside is that I don't know. Kabutops it can run Rapid Spin, but it means that if I do run Rapid Spin on it, it's probably not going to be like a particular Rain Sweeper for that week. Especially like you wouldn't run like Rain Dance and Rapid Spin on the same set. That just wouldn't work at all. So I feel like Togetic is going to be like my main form of hazard removal, which is like one downside to the draft. And as far as speed tiers go, the big issue, I feel like I got most of them all right. The only problem I had was that Gareth unfortunately selected my Leafeon, which was going to be my base 95 Speedmon. That got taken, and I had to go for Ludicolo instead, which is only base 70. But yeah, I feel like as far as fast mons go, obviously I've got Jolteon, I've got Mismagius and Dugtrio, Alone Dugtrio all over base 100. And I do have obviously the Swift Swim potential there, so it's going to be interesting for other people to, I think, to try and prep around still.
Yeah, I think that's really crucial. Is that I believe, and I could be mistaken, but I believe right now you have the fastest draft that we've looked at with Jolteon, Mismagius, Alone and Dugtrio, plus potential Swift Swim mons in there as well. I don't think we've seen another draft just yet as fast as yours, which is really nice. And as you say, you do have the kind of balance with some of the lower mons as well. You have Stealth Rock on Alone and Dugtrio, Kabutops, I assume, Monferno. So you've got a few hazard setters there too, right?
Yep, and Toxic Spikes on Weezing as well.
And Weezing is a mon that I obviously use in Owl and that I love, so I appreciate the Weezing pick. I think that's a good pick. Yeah, I just think overall, your draft is kind of... It feels like, and I mean this is very complimentary, almost like a Pokemon draft in the sense of it's a very solid... there's no drama, but everything works really well. That's how I felt when I looked at this draft. I was like, everything is just consistently solid to me. There isn't a pick here where I really identify as the weak link, other than arguably Zigzagoon. But you had your reasons for that.
I mean, there were tier 5 options, and the mons in tier 5 weren't the best. So no. I feel like Zigzagoon could be slept on a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure, but I hope that's the case. I really hope that happens. But yeah, so I'll go first with where I ranked your team. I have to explain this at this point. Get rid of any personal biases here. I did kind of use quite a formulaic strategy to my rankings. I put a lot of data into spreadsheets. I calculated a lot of stuff. And I just basically am trying to hide the fact that I ranked you top, that I put you first. And I don't want it to seem biased in any way.
Yeah, well...
I just think that you covered all your bases. Your typings are really nice. There's not one type that just runs through your team, and offensively, there's not one type that just wards your team. So yeah, I just think it's a very, very solid draft.
Yeah, and going on the basis of not being biased, I had no formula whatsoever. I literally just looked at the team and what I liked about it, what I didn't like, and I was probably quite harsh on myself in order to not seem to be biased anyway, and I put myself in 5th.
Yes, and I think that's fair. I like the fact that we approach the rankings in such different ways.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting, Jay. You've kind of gone off... what I couldn't take into account things like synergy and stuff quite as well in mine, for example. You can talk about that stuff more, so I like it.
Oh yeah,
I like it. But overall, obviously, we've both got you comfortably in the top half and a very solid draft, I think.
yeah, definitely.
So moving on next, we have Toasty Rex and the Madison Mudkips. Do you want to run through what he drafted?
Yep, so he drafted Durant, which was a snipe on me, Kamala,
yes.
Gallade, Flareon, Gigalith, Gogoat, Floette, Chloritza, Altaria, Lipard, Pikachu, and Golurk.
And his Z captain is Flareon, and his Z user is Chloritza. Obviously, as you say, Durant, round one, you kind of had a little bit of a draft built around Durant early on, and it really, really threw a spanner in the works for you. So that was hilarious for me watching.
Yep.
But a good one there, and he also picked up Gogoat, the evolution of the Christmas Kids mascot from Owl. So I like his draft for
Bonus
that
points for
alone.
that.
Yeah, exactly. that moved him up. That went into my formula somehow. But yeah, so I want to actually kick this one off by talking about his Z users, seeing as though I tend to say those. This was the only real issue I kind of had with this draft. Well, actually, I had one other, but I'll let you talk about that. But yeah. I wasn't keen on his Z captain and Z user. For me, Flareon isn't a great Z captain. I would, sometimes you're going to want to run it Guts. So you're going to want to bring that Toxic Orb. Sometimes you're going to want to run it with various different sets. I don't feel like it's a great Z user. Sure, it has like some powerful moves, but I don't know. For me, I need to be sold on that one. He needs to kind of sell that to me. And Chloritza is his offensive Z-Mon. Whilst I think that Chloritza hits super hard, we kind of had a discussion about whether Z moves, say he ran Water Pulse to get the benefit of his Mega Launcher, whether then Waterium Z would still feel the benefits of his Mega Launcher or not. I feel like with the ability of Chloritza, that's a bit of an odd one. And it's quite a slow offensive Z user. To me, personally, looking at it, Durant and Gallade stood out as great Z users. So I was really surprised to not see those two chosen.
Oh yeah, Durant would have been an incredible Z user, especially with the hustle ability, because obviously offensive Z moves can't miss. So you get the power boost from the hustle, and you get the 100% accuracy of the Z move. I feel like that could have worked a lot better for him.
I feel like that would have been absolutely terrifying to prep for, not knowing, what Durant's going to do when it comes, if it brings that Z move. And Durant being a fast mon as well. Flareon and Chloritza are both slow. I think Flareon's base 65 speed, if I'm right.
Yes.
So you can tell that I looked at drafting that. That's how I know that. But yeah, I feel like maybe that was my major issue. But do you want to talk about the kind of speed tiers and the hazard control and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so as far as hazard control goes, I do like the mons he has available. Obviously, he's got Kamala with the Rapid Spin, Floette with the Defog, and he also does have Altaria with the Defog, though the hazard removal responsibilities are probably going to fall to Floette and Kamala. I really like those. I think Kamala especially is, again, we were talking about really good Rapid Spinners for your draft. Kamala is up there probably with Serena and Blastoise as a really good Rapid Spinner.
Absolutely. I agree. I think arguably outside of mine, and that would be debatable, I think he has the next best, if not joint best, hazard removal that we've seen so far. Kamala, I think, is a very good spinner, and Floette, not being weak to rocks, is nice. There's not a whole load of defogs around that aren't weak to rocks. And then, as you say, Altaria, if need be. So I like his hazard removal a lot.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the speed tiers go, I do like the speed tiers in his draft. The only one downside I'd say is the fact that he's got his fastest mon is Durant, which is the base 109 speed. I normally do like to have a draft where you have like one like really super fast mon as well, which I know kind of makes it difficult for people to prep because they think, I'm not going to outspeed that. I've got to come up with another way. But I don't think really Toasty has that kind of speed pressure in his team.
Yeah, it's kind of how you said with Swallow, it might force people to run Scarf and things like that. There isn't really a mon in his team that would force you to run Scarf necessarily. And it does mean that the faster mons at the top of the order, things like Jolteon that we've seen already, things like Swallow, these things might be able to run, again, like Modest, Adamant, whatever, against his team, which is just, I think it's just a problem. It makes it harder to defensively check things. So I agree that along with the Z captains was my kind of only real issue with this draft was the speed, the top end.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I ranked Toasty's draft at 4th overall. I do still really like it as a draft. There are obviously still a couple of issues, but I think all of the drafts have that one or two things that maybe didn't go according to plan or something. But I think it may have been higher if he had different Z captains. I think it may have been pushing up for third or second spot in my rankings, but it was just kind of that really like hampered it for me.
Yeah, so I kind of was similar, but I still put him at third. He still made my top three, just because I think that, we spoke about some of the drafts where some mons you don't see often being brung. I feel like all of his mons really are usable. I feel like they're all decent. He's got nice bits of utility like Prankster on Lipard and things like this that help support things. And he does have real firepower with Durant and Gallade. And even Flareon does hit harder than people realize, perhaps. Chloritzer as well. So I put him up at third. Again, I feel like it's a very, very solid draft. And yeah, I'm excited to see how Toaster uses it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a solid draft still.
So moving on, and we're around the halfway point now. We have Checkmate Ben, a good friend of both of ours as well, and his Maypole Green Grovyle.
Yep, so Ben drafted Aselgor, Persimmon, Credilli, Dramper, Luxray, Grumpig, Kricketune, Quagsire, Kecleon, Magcargo, Pangoro, and Grovyle.
And his Z captain is Pangoro, and his Z user is Dramper. I like Pangoro as a Z captain, and Z parting shot I think is an absolutely awesome Z move. I'm assuming that's why it's his captain, so that he can make use of that. But I think if you just assume going into a battle against him that he's going to bring that, and he brings an offensive Z move, Pangoro's attack is around 120, right? So it hits hard enough to be a real problem.
Oh yeah, it's base 124. It's going to deal some damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dramper as well. I mean, if he gets a Berserk boost and fires off a Z move, that's going to hurt.
Yeah, and not just that, Dramper has got is one of those ones that has a really ridiculously wide move pool as well.
Yeah,
so he's got like a massive assortment of Z moves to choose from on that thing.
It's going to be very hard to prep, trying to anticipate what he's going to bring between his two Z users. Quite scary, to be honest, those are.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Do you want to kind of talk about his what you think of his draft?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things that stood out to me. The first one being his massive weaknesses to flying and to bug.
Yes.
Those ones really stood out to me. He's going to have a big problem. Like, for example, your Swallow, if you bring a Guts Bravebird set or something, a lot of his mons are going to have issues with dealing with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, even his best check, Credilli obviously being a rock type, still has the grass typing, so it still takes neutral from the flying.
In there, but Magcargo will get worn down quickly.
But yeah, and his speed were another issue of mine as well. Obviously, he's got the really fast mon in Selgor, which is something we've been going on about
most
of these drafts. But then his next fastest mon is the Grovyle at base 95 speed. There is nothing in between those. Yeah. And I feel like that's another big issue with
I think
the draft.
The Persimmon hits close to that as well, doesn't it? Is it around the 95 mark?
Base 80.
Is it base 80? Oh, I thought it was higher. I thought it was around 90, 95.
That's his next fastest mon after Grovyle is base 80 Persimmon and base 80 Grumpig.
So it's a very, very slow draft. He I'm sure if he was here to defend himself would argue, but hey, I have Kricketune, the best web setter in the format. Yes. he would probably claim. He does have the sticky webs option. Obviously, Kricketune isn't the best mon, but he does have the sticky webs option, which could come, and that's one of the things that I do kind of like about his draft, is that he has good hazard options. A Selgor can stack spikes. Does it get T spikes as well? Is that right?
It may do. Yeah, it gets spikes and T spikes.
Yeah, so it can stack both of those potentially. He's got a few rocks options with Kecleon, I believe, Magcargo, and Cradilli. And he's got webs as well. So he has pretty much all of the hazard bases covered that you can have covered. Which I think is very essential on a team that's quite slow, as you say.
The one downside I would say, though, is the fact that his hazard removal, he only has Defog as his hazard removal. Yeah. And that's a bit of a problem, especially if you're setting up webs. You don't really want to be clicking Defog, because then you'll be removing your own webs as well.
And I right in thinking that Dramper is the only Defog user on his draft?
Yes,
is that right?
That's right, yeah.
It's not it's not weak to rocks, but being such a slow mon, it's not necessarily the most reliable form of removal. But as you say, a spinner seems to make a lot more sense on a draft that may rely on webs at times.
Oh yeah. The one thing I will say, though, is he does have a good trick room user in Grumpig, so that may as well be an option for him that he might decide to...
And I think if teams don't come prepared, he's especially the type of coach that he is. Things like Quagsire, Cradilly, Grumpig, these really, really fat mons, they might just be unkillable with Ben around. They might just sit there and beat people. I'm scared of what he's going to do with all that bulk. I'm a little bit worried about it, if I'm honest. Speed might not even be an issue if you can't kill anything on his team. And he does have some firepower, and things like a Selgor, I think, hits reasonably hard, right? And Persimmon obviously hits very hard.
And the Bangora, as we mentioned as well, that hits hard as well.
Of course, and the Drampa too. So yeah, do you want to kind of talk about where you rank this draft?
Yeah, so I think this is where we remind the people that obviously this is based purely on the draft and not on like the coachability.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
I put this draft at 11th, but I do think, knowing Ben as I do, he will be able to still put in work with this draft.
Yes.
But based on the draft overall, I put it as 11th.
Exact same for me. I put it at 11th. There's too many common weaknesses. There's too much of a lack of speed. There's too much. If you gave this draft to me, for example, I'm gonna come bottom of the league. There's no doubt about it.
If you gave this draft to most people, they'd probably come bottom of the league. But I feel like Ben is the type of coach who would be able to put in work with it.
He's a strange fellow, and I expect him to not come 11th at all. But on draft alone, it has to be there for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is exciting because that's not bottom. So for you guys that don't know who drafted what and what's coming up, there is a draft worse than this.
There you go.
Which is very exciting. But next up, we have the one guy, Elliot, and his Michigan Mienshao. I was about to say a good friend of both of ours, but I can't stand the guy. I just don't like him. No, that's not true at all. Elliot, obviously we know pretty well and is a great guy. Do you want to run through his draft?
Yeah, so he drafted Tyrantrum, Xatu, Gorbis, Palisand, Alolan Sandslash, Electrode, Pignite, Linoon, Slurpuff, Meganium, Whirlipede, and Wartortle.
Yeah, and his Z captain is the Gorbis, and his Z user is Tyrantrum. I don't know why Gorbis is the Z captain. I'm guessing there's tech here that I don't know about. He must have a reason. I think if he... I don't know. I assume it was going to be a white Shell Smash set all the time, so... I don't know what his plans are with Gorbis, but not knowing makes me a little bit nervous. And then Tyrantrum is the offensive Z user. Obviously, that thing, if it gets a Dragon Dance up and then fires off a Z move, something's dying. That's terrifying.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the only thing I could possibly think of is maybe Z Hail for the Alolan Sandslash, because he gets like it does get +1 speed, but still Gorbis is really slow, so even the +1 speed may not necessarily be...
Yeah, you'd probably rather just have the Shell Smash, wouldn't you?
Yeah, probably.
So that's a bit of an odd one to me, and was a slight problem for me, but only very slight. Do you want to kind of talk about his draft overall?
Yeah, so overall, his draft is insanely offensive.
Crazy. The most offensive draft we've spoken about so far by a mile.
Probably even the most offensive draft in the entire league, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah.
He's got some crazy setup options like Belly Drum Slurpuff, Belly Drum Linoon, Dragon Dance Tyrantrum, Alolan Sandslash obviously can set up Hail and get a Swords Dance up as well.
Shell Smash Gorbis is still there. He doesn't have to bring the Z move.
Exactly. He's got some crazy setup options, and yeah, it is probably one of the most offensive drafts in the league.
Yes, yeah, and with Slurpuff obviously getting Sticky Webs as well, Tyrantrum and Linoon under Sticky Webs is very, very frightening. Very frightening. I'm not happy about that, to be honest. That scares me a lot. His speeds, though, I think was something that we had a little bit of a problem with.
Yeah, definitely. He's got the Electrode, which is obviously base 150 speed. Obviously, that fast one that, again, a lot of people really haven't necessarily had. Then it all of a sudden drops all the way down to Linoon at base 100.
Yeah, and it's a massive, massive gulf there between the two. Which we've spoken a lot about speed creeping and what that means for the natures you can run. And I really feel like anything over base 100 is laughing, really, there. And Linoon, obviously, we did discuss as well, relying sometimes on the E-speed pressure as well, means that you don't even necessarily have to speed creep Linoon either.
Yeah, definitely. And with things like Electrode as well being his fastest mon, with it not necessarily being that offensive, with only having 80 base special attack, it's not necessarily something that people are going to be necessarily concerned about speed creeping either.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. The issue that we did kind of have as well on the defensive side, because we do have to speak about that side as well, is that arguably Meganium is his only wall in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, Palisand has base 110 defense, but most of the time with it being weak to things like Ghost and Water and Grass, and it's mainly going to be hit on the special side anyway, in which
Hmm.
it can't really tank those hits as well.
And they're very common typings as well. Water and grass are one of the major two components of the major fire water grass core in the draft league. So I do think Palisand isn't necessarily the best defensive wall, although Meganium's Knife. Whirlipede and War Turtle have bulk with that Eviolite on them, but knockoff kind of runs through his team as well because Palisand doesn't want to switch into a knockoff either. So yeah, I think there are some definite problems there on the defensive synergy.
Yeah, definitely.
But it has to be said, for me, the raw power of this draft kind of compensates for all of that.
Yeah, I mean the big problem that I think a lot of people are going to have to deal with, like most bulky mons, things like the Jellicent, Slowbro, Slowking, all of those went undrafted in this league,
Yes.
and everyone's going to have an answer for that Linoon.
Yes.
Everyone's going to have to consider, right, how am I going to beat that Linoon? If that thing gets a belly drum off, gets its Gluttony Berry all the way back up to full, and it
Hmm.
just starts e-speeding through my team, it even gets like things like Stomping Tantrum, Seed Bomb, Shadow Claw
Yeah.
for the things that it wouldn't normally hit as hard.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
gets that coverage for it. So everyone in the league needs to have an answer for that Linoon, or they're just going to lose straight up to Elliot.
Yeah. And even if it doesn't sweep necessarily, maybe you've got some fast enough mons that can live a hit and get some damage on it or something like that. It's probably gonna kill three of your mons because of the gluttony, taking it all the way back to full health. It's not necessarily the easiest mon to one shot. It's gonna be interesting. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see how everyone kind of counter teams that. And of course, if you just go hard counter teaming that, and then he brings Calm Mind, Slurpuff, or Shell Smash Gorobis, and he sweeps you on the special side, that's a problem too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And even not just that. Obviously, Tyrantrum with the Dragon Dance. We mentioned his setup options. Obviously, the Slurpuff item from Belly Drum as well. You need to make sure you're prepared for numerous setup options.
We should probably say as well his removal. He does have two spinners in War Turtle and a Lowland Sandslash. So with him having sticky webs, that was something that we kind of had a bit of an issue with on Checkmate's team. The one guy's team looks like he can get those webs up and probably keep them there. He does have two spinners. He also has the Zartu to kind of block things with that magic bounce and to defog as well, I believe.
Yep, definitely.
So I like his hazard control. Actually, they're not necessarily the War Turtle, for example, is quite a passive mon, but he at least can spin. He's not depending on the defog.
Oh yeah, definitely. And people are going to be more concerned about clicking Stealth Rock on if he brings the Zartu as well, because they don't necessarily think, oh, is this thing going to switch in? Is it going to bounce the rocks back? Am I now going to have rocks up on my side? It adds that level of mind games to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, this draft came in at second place. I think just the raw power of it really skewed the numbers in Elliot's favor. It's just very, very scary, and I think the fact that there are so many mons that have to be counter teamed here, I can just see coaches really struggling.
Yeah, I put his draft at third. I felt like if he'd had maybe another couple of dedicated wolves in his team, then this draft could easily have been top, pretty
Yeah.
much. But that was for me. That was like the only real big thing that kind of let it down.
Yeah, I completely agree. So moving on next, we have Nico. Oh, we're just going through my least favorite people at the minute. We have Nico and the Phoenix Soul Rocks. Very, very good friend of mine and of yours too, of course. Do you want to run through his draft?
Yeah, so he drafted Hitmontop, Magmortar, Masquerain, Electabuzz, Roselia, Luminion, Gabite, Claydol, Haunter, Absol, Zangoose, and Surskit.
Yes, so he has the Masquerain and the Surskit. He takes his Messiah and his Messiah Junior. Two mascot picks in one draft is always nice. And his Z captain is the Masquerain, and his Z user is the Magmortar.
Yeah.
I think that this draft is very, very solid, and maybe I am a little bit biased because I know Nico and I know how he plays and everything else. But he always picks up his Masquerain. He knows how to use it well, and in this format, for once, it's going to be actually viable.
Sticky webs obviously are really good in this kind of format as well, and the intimidate ability that it gets.
Yeah, absolutely. And Quiver Dance as well to set up if he wants to go down that route. He has some quite nice mons, I feel, to hit underneath underneath web. Sorry, so Magmortar, Zangoose, Haunter, these things hit pretty hard, and I know how much he likes Magmortar, so I was delighted to see that drafted and as his Z user. I'm quite scared to come up against that thing. There's not a whole lot of switch-ins to Magmortar in this format.
Yeah, definitely, especially as a Z user as well. Obviously, it's got some nice coverage moves for it, so it can fire off some heavy hits.
And talking about, removal with it being another webs team, he does have the spinners in Hitmontop and Claydol, which I think are excellent spinners. He then picked up Luminion as well as his defogger. I didn't necessarily feel that pick was necessary. I feel like there were better water types, and with having two spinners, I don't know, maybe he doesn't want to get spin blocked, but I felt like Luminion wasn't necessarily the best pick there. But other than that, he has a good hazard stack as well with things like Roselia getting access to T-Spikes, Claydol obviously bringing the rocks. So yeah, I think he's got an interesting team for sure.
Yeah, the Luminion pick was a bit of an issue as well for me, because the fact that it doesn't, literally, it defogs. That's pretty much what it does. It's got insanely mediocre stats.
Yes, yeah.
And I feel like there are definitely better water type options out there for his team.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a problem on his team for me, is that I like to see a good, strong fire, water, grass core. And with Roselia really being there to kind of set up spikes and things like that, and Luminion being a little bit weak and defogging away the hazard stack that Nico has, I feel like Magmortar is the only strong component, or only great component to his fire, water, grass core. So I was a little bit disappointed with that side of the team, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there were a couple of other things that I potentially didn't like about the team. The fact that he has no dragon resist on his team, like at all.
Yes.
Most teams normally have at least one steel type or one fairy type, just so they have something for when they come up against an offensive dragon type. But I feel like, I know there's not as many in this kind of format, but when he does come up against one, it's going to cause him some issues.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a real problem. If something like your Kingdra, for example, could just drop Draco Meteors on his team freely, and that's really, really scary. That's a problem. His speed tiers, I don't know too much about his speed tiers. How are they looking?
His fastest mon is the Electabuzz at base 105, and then it drops down to the Haunter at base 95. He doesn't have that fast mon, but he does have the webs option, but I kind of feel like a lot of the time he is going to be reliant on bringing those webs, though. Knowing Nico as I do, Masquerain will be coming every week anyway, so...
Yes. Yeah, I felt much the same way. When I looked at his speed briefly, I didn't look at it for very long because I just thought, well, he's going to have webs anyway. So Masquerain will be there every single week. And if it's not, then Surskit will be there with the webs instead. So
exactly.
But yeah, I have this draft up at 5th, which is because I think that there's really some strong offensive hitters here between Magmortar, Zangoose, Haunter. There's not many switch-ins to those three, arguably. And the webs, I keep trying to say Trick Room, the webs option and the kind of support in the two great spinners, I think made this draft quite scary, quite hard to go up against.
Yeah, I mean, I rated it at 7th. Obviously, for me, the lack of like a dragon resist was a big factor. He also doesn't really have much for flying types, with his only resist being Electabuzz.
Yes.
Flying types kind of caused him a bit of an issue as well. So I just feel like with the defensive synergy in this team, it kind of just doesn't work for me, which is why I rated it at 7th.
Yeah, I feel like this draft is very easily fixed with, something like a good steel type, for example, would fix the flying resist, would fix the dragon resist, that kind of thing.
Yeah, again, it's a case of like Garrus draft, maybe one or two trades, and this is up there competing at the towards the top.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And we both got it around mid-table. 5th and 7th, we both feel like it is solid, but it's not necessarily standing out as a potentially title-winning draft. Only on the draft, of course.
Certainly not one of the worst teams in the draft either.
No, not at all. And next up, we have Quillfish. And I'm going to mispronounce this, but I'm going to do my best. And the Quinnipiac Quillfish. I'm going to say Quinnipiac. If I'm wrong, Quillfish, please comment down below and kind of phonetically spell it out for me, because I do want to pronounce that right for the rest of the kind of season. So let me know. But do you want to run through his draft?
Yeah, so he drafted Ribombi, Miltank, Zebstriker, Politoed, Chatot, Magmar, Castform, Registeel, Piloswine, Lilligant, Sliggoo, and Dartrix.
And his Z captain is the Castform, and his Z user is the Lilligant.
And I have to say, I am very excited for Castform. I am really excited for it.
If I'm honest, I'm very skeptical about it. When he posted in the Discord that he was picking this as his Z captain, I kind of said, are you sure? I don't know if it was when he drafted it or when he put it as Z captain, one or the other. But he said he had big plans for this thing. I'm excited to see how he uses it. but I'm not convinced myself.
You already know it's going to be Z Rain Dance, Z Sunny Day, Z Hail.
Yes,
Get that +1 speed because obviously Cast Form is only base 70 speed, and then he gets that form change into one of its forms, and yeah, that's where I see him going with it, and that's why I'm
I
really
agree.
excited for it.
I agree. I think that's why it's the captain rather than the user, of course, trying to get that utility. But I just don't know if that's still gonna. It's still cast form. You know, it might have set up its sun, but it'd be dead by the end of the turn. So I don't know. I've got to be convinced. But he can do it. He can do that definitely. Lilligant obviously is a good mon. If he gets a quiver dance up and then fires off a powerful Z move, that's going to be very scary.
But it's not just that. If he gets a Z Sunny Day off or just a regular Sunny Day off with Cast Form, obviously Lilligant with the Chlorophyll ability getting its speed boosted as well, there is some good synergy between the Z captains there, which is going to be really interesting.
I hope he runs the rain dance for the whole season now. It never brings that. But no, you are absolutely right, of course. That's very true. So looking at his draft, some of those things that I really liked, Rabombi, setting up webs, another sticky web user. We've seen a lot go in this format. People are obviously thinking that's going to be very, very viable. I like Rabombi, another quiver dance user, so he's got another setup mon. And then he's got some real nice bulk to go along with his offensive setup mons in Registeel and Miltank. I think for me, Registeel and Miltank would be two of the best kind of bulky mons in this format. Registeel in particular, there was not many good steel types around. I had a long conversation with you actually. I think about wanting to draft Registeel at the beginning, but not really liking it as a mon. But
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic pick. I'm really excited to see that here.
Yeah, the only big issue I have with his defensive core is the fact that the Miltank, the Registeel, the Piloswine are all weak to fighting.
Yes, yes,
So, and a
absolutely.
strong offensive fighting type could well cause him some problems.
Yeah. I think he has some offensive answers to that in Rabombi and Chatot, but they're not really going to want to switch in to things. So
No, they're not going to want to take
um,
the hits at all.
kind of fighting type revenge killers look very good against him, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Um,
do you want to kind of talk about removal options, speed tiers, all that kind of technical stuff?
Yeah, so his speed is, for me at this point, obviously out of all the teams we've drafted, I think he probably has one of the better lots of speed tiers. Obviously, he's got the Rabombi at base 124, Zeb Striker at 116, Miltank at 100. So he's got some nice options like from base 100 onwards, and then he also has like base 91 speed in Chatot, 93 in Magmar, 90 in Lilligant. And then obviously with Lilligant potentially having the Chlorophyll ability as well.
Hmm.
There is a lot of definitely. I like his speed tiers a lot.
I agree. I completely agree. If his cast form is going to be boosting its speed, Lilligant, maybe quiver dancing or getting the chlorophyll boost, and Rabombi perhaps getting quiver dance off as well. He's got the option to go really fast. He's also got the option of webs, and as you say, he's hitting all those tiers that make it difficult to creep him. Maybe the only thing that didn't quite click for me was the Miltank being the one at kind of base 100 because I wouldn't expect to see really fast Miltank every week. So some teams, when they're prepping against him, may be able, with their base 100s, to not have to really speed creep too much, just to chat out at 91. Or I think the Magmar's around 93 as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But still, yeah, that was the only slight gap for me, and that is only a very, very slight gap.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, overall, I did like his draft. It just, there was a little bit, again, I guess, of the kind of firepower problem for me here in that a few of his mons I feel need to set up to really hit that hard.
Yeah, definitely.
And to break things. And I do feel like good walls could just potentially wear him down and beat this team. I don't see great wall breakers here.
Yeah, my biggest issue as well with it is on his type weaknesses. He's got four mons weak to rock, with only one resist being the Registeel. I mean, obviously it's a good resist at that, but the fact
Yes.
that his entire team is so weak to rock, and his defog options are Chatot and Dartrix, which take 25% from rocks, and Cast Form, which is base 70 stats across the board, I feel like he's going to be too reliant on having to have those as defog. So maybe you might not see the offensive Cast Form with the Z move. It may have to be like a defog set.
Yeah.
Or like a defog Dartrix, and he's just going to be like really reliant on those.
Yeah, and again, if he does want to bring webs on the Rabombi, then defog, he doesn't have any spin options on his draft, so that's not great. And as you say, the Registeel being the only rock resist is problematic because quite often rock types will have ground coverage, a lot of them will have EQ. So
Yep.
if somebody makes that prediction, Registeel could be down in a couple of hits, and that's a problem too.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I agree. Those kind of problems that came through at the end meant that I ranked him in 7th. Sort of mid-table again, lower mid-table, I guess, just getting into the bottom of the half there. But still solid, still could put in work, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I've got him ranked as 6th, so we're about the same kind of position with
Yes.
his draft. But yeah, I do like it. There are just a couple of things that maybe kept him down a little bit lower than he would have otherwise been.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So moving on next, we have Rob, Rocky Rolo, and his sexy Sigilith. The most interesting team name we've had so far.
And probably the best logo in the league as well.
Yeah, almost certainly. Yeah, do you want to run through his draft?
Yeah, so he drafted Silvally, Dusk Noir, Lapras, Togedemaru, Combusken, Rotom Fan, Fracture, Alolan Persian, Wigglytuff, Gorgeist, Gastrodon, and Vikavolt.
Yep, and his Z captain is the Alolan Persian, the second Z captain that gets access to Parting Shot. Obviously, we've discussed that previously with the Pangoro. And his Z user is Vikavolt, which hits so hard, and I think gets reasonable coverage if I'm right. So
yeah, it gets some interesting stuff. It gets things like Energy Ball as well, so it can hit so it can hit the ground types that want to switch in.
Yeah, so I can see that being a good nuke for things like that, for example. So his Z user and his Z captain make a lot of sense to me. Alolan Persian as a Z captain, again, one of the best in the league in my opinion, getting access to that Z Parting Shot. But if it gets a nasty plot up, and then runs Darkinium Z on, I don't know, a Dark Pulse, say, that's still going to really, really hurt, even though its base special attack isn't very high. With the nasty plot boost, it's scary.
Yeah, definitely. I really like his pick of Silvally as well, because obviously the fact that Silvally can be any of the types, it can hold any of the memories that it wants to. So it's really hard to prep around. It's got some really good support options for the team, obviously getting things like Defog. It also gets Parting Shot as well as Alolan Persian, so even if you're not running the Z Parting Shot, you can still reduce like the attack and special attack by 1, and that's still going to hinder some teams in that.
Yeah, of course. And I think that he has some interesting kind of setup mods, things like Combusken with the speed boost ability, being able to baton pass that, or being able to sword stance. And of course the Vikavolt, if it can get an agility off, Vikavolt becomes very, very scary with just a little bit of speed. So having double Parting Shot into these potential setup mons, I think is pretty cool. I think that's going to be interesting. He does have Wish Mons in Togedemaru and Wigglytuff, although they're arguably not the best Wish passes. Wigglytuff isn't going to be too bad. And very, very solid walls and things like Gastrodon and Gorgeist.
And Dusk Noir as well. Dusk Noir is...
Yes, very true.
Yeah, if you don't have something for his walls, then he's... Yeah, that's probably could win him some games, some weeks.
And even Silvally can be relatively bulky if you choose to bring it that way. I mean, not super bulky, but bulky enough. And Lapras too, so... I feel like, and of course Fracture, we're talking about setup mons, Fracture with the Dragon Dance there is very, very good. Do you want to get into the kind of the mechanics of the speed tiers and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so his speed tiers, he's got Alolan Persian at base 115, and then it's a drop down to Silvally at 95 and Togedemaru at 96, unless he brings the speedy Gorgeist, the small Gorgeist form, which is base 99 speed.
Yes, yeah.
But unfortunately that loses out on some attack. So, I don't know, maybe he might bring that if he wants some extra speed some week. But
Yeah, and that was kind of my major problem with this draft, I guess, was that I felt it was a little bit slow, and there was just a huge gap between those speed tiers. I know that the Combusken gets a speed boost, and he's going to probably be baton passing that around, which would be scary. But I guess it was that kind of firepower that we've discussed on one or two of the drafts that was just a little bit lacking here for me. But that was really the only weakness.
Yeah, see, knowing how Rob plays as well, I feel like he's going to be able to use this draft really well. I mean, he has got, while his speeders may not be fantastic, he has got obviously the baton pass speed boost with Combusken. He's also got a Trick Room option in Dusk Noir, because obviously Dusk Noir itself is a fantastic Trick Room user.
Yes, yeah. And it's good that you actually kind of mentioned that, because where I rank Rob's draft, I actually think he will finish higher. I think he as a coach will bump this up, as you say. I think he will perform really well. But I do have him in at 6th place on mine, so slap bang in the middle. I think that just comes down to one or two weaknesses for me.
Yeah, for me, considering that mine wasn't as obviously data intensive as yours was, mine was literally just like on the look of it. Maybe some bias came into it. I actually ranked him as the top spot in the league, to be honest.
Yes, yeah, and this is one of the major ones that we really differed on. As it happens, if you told me tomorrow that Rob's going to win the whole thing, I wouldn't doubt that. I wouldn't argue. It's
Yeah.
just on the draft alone for me, with all the data and stuff, it came in around mid-table.
Yeah, the reason I rated him so high is his team has really good type synergy. The only thing it's
Yes.
like commonly weak to is it has three rock weaknesses, but it also has two rock resistances. And obviously he's got a couple of fairy weaknesses, but he does have a token of Maru, which can threaten out a load of the fairy types. Obviously, with now actually does get good steel coverage.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, moving on now to the draft that we have to discuss, I guess.
Yep.
One of the main talking points of the LTC, I guess, is Sean Iconoclast and his the Yardbirds and what he drafted there. Or the Yardburbs, sorry. Let me pronounce
Yardburbs.
that B. Let me pronounce that B.
So yeah, he drafted Honchkrow, Golbat, Articuno, Swoobat, Emolga, Prinplup, Staravia, Blaziken, Oricorio, Tailo, Dodrio, and Pidgey.
And his Z captain is Articuno, and his Z user is Swoobat. And there's something obvious going on here. You guys, I'm sure have noticed already that everything is a burb, apparently.
Apart from Golbat, Swoobat, Emolga, but we'll overlook those.
Yes, they are winged things, so they count apparently. But yes, everything on his draft is pretty much mono flying, with the exception of things like the Blaziken and the Prinplup. But it's almost a monotype draft here.
Yeah, fairly, almost.
Do you want to kind of talk about the mechanics of this draft? I mean, does he have any removal, for example? Does he have any default?
Oh, I wonder. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think pretty much almost everything on there gets defog. I don't know if there may be one that doesn't. I may be completely wrong, but he does have actually good defog options in like Prinplup, which is one of only two mons that actually aren't weak to to rocks on his team. So Prinplup is actually a solid defogger, and Blaziken obviously can get defog as well, though you feel like that would be brought more offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. I on my sheet here, I have him down as having 11 defoggers, which would mean one of them doesn't get defog. I don't know which one or whether I made a mistake, but
maybe Emolga.
No,
Emolga gets defog. I don't know. We'll be told in the comment section. I'm sure.
Maybe it's Dodrio. Does Dodrio get defog?
That might be it. Yeah. No, Dodrio doesn't get defog.
That's the
yeah,
one. So,
right.
But other than that, he has some removal options. But as you say, really the only viable one is Prinplup. The rest you don't want them to be your defoggers. I'm excited to see how he uses this. The kind of type synergy, it doesn't really need to be explained. The type synergy here is pretty horrible. If he has rocks up, then everything is struggling. A good rock type, other than Prinplup, pretty much sweeps. And in fact, if you get rid of Emolga as well, then an electric type puts in a lot of work too.
Yeah, definitely. He's got some issues to work around.
Yeah, for sure. His speed tiers, I think, are pretty good, right?
That was the one like really big positive I saw with his team. Obviously, he's got Swoobat at base 114, Dodrio at base 110, Emolga at base 103, and then going further down, he's got Oricorio at 93, Golbat at 90. I really do like his speed tiers.
Yeah, they are awesome. Unfortunately, they're not enough. They're not enough to redeem a draft that really is so weak to two typings. It really struggles. We should mention here that he is a excellent monotype player. That he's having conversations with him. I think he said he's been up to 6th on the monotype ladder. Was he even saying top 2? In fact,
I think he's been up towards the top with I think it was like 6th with flying monotype, but he's definitely been up towards the top of the ladder. Like monotype is his tier, yes. So he's probably going to be at home with this draft.
That's it. If I remember correctly, I think he'd been 1st with a mono water team and 6th or something with a mono flying team. So yes, he's drafted it for the memes, and yes, his draft policy was, is it a burb? But I don't think this is a coach that should be taken lightly. I have him ranked at 12th on the draft alone, but I don't see there being any way that he actually comes bottom of the league.
Yeah, I have him exactly the same, and I feel exactly the same. Obviously, he's 12th based on purely the draft. I feel like people will be taken by surprise by this draft, and I feel like he's going to get he'll get a few wins with it.
For sure. I pity his week 1 opponent, because if he loses and he's the first one to suffer at the hands, everyone will be laughing because they won't know about his power yet. So whoever has him week 1 is...
I wonder who that could be.
Why me? Why me? Um, moving on anyway to, I believe, the last draft we have to talk about. And we have Socrates, a coach that we both know well from the ABC, of course, and his Vespergrin Park Rangers.
Yeah, definitely. And his draft was Dragalge, Scyther, Stunfisk, Manectric, Frogadier, Morwile, Vigoroth, Comfey, Lurantis, Duosion, Turtonator, and Glalie.
Yeah, and his Z captain is the Dragalge, and his Z user is the Frogadier. I love both those picks. Frogadier getting the protein ability as a Z user to me makes a lot of sense. You can get stab on all of its coverage, and it still gets nice coverage. It doesn't quite get as much coverage as Greninja does, but it still gets nice coverage. So I like Frogadier. I think it's a great offensive Z user. And Dragalge as Z captain. I don't know if he's going to bring maybe like Z Rain Dance to get some boost or something one week. But just Z Draco Meteor is going to kill pretty much anything that isn't a fairy type, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, it's also possible that he decided that maybe he didn't have great options for like status Z moves, and he just wanted another offensive Z user. So obviously named just one of those as the
And
captain.
I really feel like that's probably the case looking at his team. Comfey's the only mon that I would probably class as a support mon. Everything else is kind of slightly different. I mean, maybe Stunfisk, but I wouldn't. I agree. I wouldn't maybe be thinking about the utility of my Z moves with this pick. I'd be thinking, okay, I just want some firepower with my Z captain.
Just two mons that can use Z moves that can hit hard, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And getting into the kind of nitty gritty of his draft, he has some interesting kind of speed tiers and stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely. He has his fastest mons are both base 105, Scyther and Manectric, and then goes down to Comfey at base 100. Again, that's another slight issue I have with the draft is that he doesn't have anything over that base 105 speed, which I feel like may cause some problems. But below that, obviously, his speed tiers are fantastic. Like he's got Frogadier 97, Vigoroth at 90. I know one of your favourite mons.
Disgusting.
But yeah, below that, he has some really nice speed tiers. It's just he doesn't have anything that goes above that 105.
Yeah. And that's the thing for me is that he filled in the speed tiers below 105, arguably as well as say Sean, who we kind of spoke about how great his speed tiers were. As you say, the only problem is the very, very fast mon. But, the more we've done this, the more I've realised that there's been quite a few drafts we felt that about. So maybe, there's going to be less teams that can exploit that than is normal in a normal draft league, I guess.
Possibly.
I really like this draft. I'm a big fan of it, but you did kind of notice a real problem with the type synergy here.
Yeah, so he has a bit of an issue with ground types, whereas he has 5 ground weaknesses. He does have 2 resistances, one being Scyther and one being Lurantis, but obviously Lurantis isn't the most bulkiest of things anyway, so it isn't necessarily going to want to switch in on an Earthquake. And Scyther, while it is immune, obviously most ground types do still have rock coverage with like Stone Edge or Rock Slide or something, and Scyther is really not going to want to take one of those.
Yeah, and that was kind of the only real major drawback, because the speed tiers are a problem, but they're not a massive problem with him doing so well below that 105 speed. That was the kind of only issue, as you say, a good ground type can be a real problem for his team. That does worry me, but I know Sock very well, and I think that he will work around it just fine. But on paper, that was a major drawback for this draft. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's one of the few things, like, I'm looking at the team now, and it genuinely looks like a team that I would draft as well.
Yes,
that's one
absolutely.
thing I like about it. And
yeah,
he's got good defog users in Comfey and Lurantis.
Yeah.
Probably two of the best defoggers in this kind of format.
Yeah, I think Comfey is right up there, being fast, not being weak to rocks. I think it's an awesome defogger here. Really great support mon, and with there not being a whole host of great fairies around, I think Comfey actually is a very, very good fairy here.
Yeah, definitely.
And him having Double Dragon with Dragalge and the Turtonator, we've spoken about a couple of teams having some problems with Dragon types, so that could be interesting offensively.
Yeah, definitely.
And his hazard stack, he has Stunfisk with the rocks, he has Morwile with rocks, I believe, and he has Glalie to set up spikes as well, and to bring some priority. Glalie, I think, is an interesting pick. It was a mon that I looked at that I know a lot of people don't like, but I'm excited to see Sock use it. I want to see how he does with it.
Yeah, its stats don't look as good, but I feel like it does have a role to play on this team, definitely.
Yeah, it's got some utility here for sure. So overall, this draft for me came in at 4th. It scored really highly, coming in the top, top 5, very much top half. And I could see Sock doing brilliantly with it because I know him so well, and Socrates is a great battler. So I'm excited to see how he uses it.
Yeah, so I ranked this draft overall at second. I had a really tough time choosing between this one and Rob's team for the top spot. I think what swayed me to put this one in second as opposed to in first was the fact that he doesn't have anything over that base 105 speed, and the ground typing is a bit of an issue for him. Whereas Rob does have that fast mon, he does have the type synergy in his team. I literally think that was the only thing that made me put it at second. But overall, I do really like this draft.
Yeah, I completely agree. The ground problem and the type synergy was really what dropped it down in my kind of data, because these things were all factored in. That was what really dropped it down below Toasty and Elliot's drafts. But I'm going to be scared to come up against it. I think he has Trick Room in the Duosion as well, so Dragaugi under Trick Room just kills things. It's just frightening.
Duosion's going to be a pain to deal with as well. Obviously, we know how annoying Uniclus is, but obviously Duosion, it may be middle evolution, but it still has base 125 special attack. And then obviously it's base 50 and 60 defenses, but it then has the Evilite onto it, which is going to make it really bulky, really, really tough, I think it's going to be for people to take that down.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. So that kind of wraps it up for our teams here. That's all 12 teams, kind of where we rank them. If you guys want to let us know, if you want to have a go at giving some power rankings down below, absolutely go ahead and do that. I would be fascinated to see where you guys rank all the drafts. Bear in mind, we are just going off drafts alone at this point. After week 1, I will be back. I don't know who I'll be joined with. I may be on my own. I may have a guest. I don't know yet. But I'll be back ranking them based on the drafts, trades, and the week 1 performance. So that's when we'll start to factor in coachability. And that will then, things could drastically change after week 1. I have no idea.
Yeah, and one thing I will say is definitely check out, there will be an invite link to the Discord in the description if you want to come in, if you want to chat with some of the coaches, chat with us, and just join in and see, get to watch the replays of the battles and stuff like that. Definitely come and join in.
Oh, amazing. I didn't know that. That's really cool. I don't think I've ever been in a league that does that, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, definitely do that, guys. You can see how irritating I am in a Discord server, just spamming messages about unbanning Donphan. It'll be brilliant. We'll have a good time.
And how he got sniped with Mudsdale.
Stop bringing this up. I'm still upset about it. I've lost so much sleep. It's okay. I have the better donkey in Mudspray. I'm excited.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll wait to find out. And definitely make sure you stay tuned to the LTC channel, guys. If you've liked what you've seen here, if you're interested to see a league like this, it is very different. I don't know many leagues that go this low with the kind of tiering. So I'm excited to see what happens and to see some really underappreciated mons get some appreciation for once. I think that's what this is really about. I mean, you kind of had this idea, you set up this league. I think that's what you're going for here, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I originally mentioned the idea to you back in January, I think it was, and now to finally see it come to life and see all the drafts here, it's going to be a really exciting season.
Yeah, and power rankings will be up every Monday, assuming that I am not loafing around and that I manage to get them up. They will be up every Monday. And I believe you're bringing some other content to the channel too, is that right?
Yep, there should be further content up each week. Still trying to get a few things finalised, but there will definitely be more content, so definitely click that subscribe button and stick around.
Absolutely. And that's going to end it here for us today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed everything. Thank you so much for loafing around with us, and we will catch you again next time.
Goodbye.